Welcome to That's Derm Good. I'm Janelle Ball, and I'm excited to bring you thought-provoking conversations about biologics, specialty medications, treatments, and so much more. I'll be chatting with some amazing guests about access, affordability, and advocacy. You're really going to enjoy this show. Welcome to That's Derm Good. Today, my guest is Cameron Hemphill. Cameron is the CEO, founder, growth architect, tech innovator, and key opinion leader in medical aesthetics. Welcome, Cameron. Thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's a lovely day and excited to get into it. So thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I know you have built and scaled platforms supporting over 1,000 practices nationwide. I'm really excited to learn about what that really entails. And also, you have a belief that sustainable growth isn't just a marketing problems and it's a systems problem. So I love to dive into all of that. But first, I kind of want to go back a little bit and hear what got you into the medical aesthetics space in the first place, and what made you decide to stay in this space?
Yeah. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life and an advocate for investing as well and investing in vehicles that produce a return on capital. Anything from investing in the US economy, stocks, real estate, business opportunities, ventures. And, early on out of college, I got into real estate actually as a broker. So I worked on the retail side. I represented buyers and sellers. And I quickly identified that it was a fragmented industry at a very young age. I mean, I was 21. And what I mean by fragmented is the way that they were utilizing technology, the way that they were responding to leads, the way that they were sending documents, the way that they were calculating commissions. This was like pre DocuSign, like it was super innovative when you could email, you could do fax to email. It
Mhm.
was, and like during the market of 2004 and five, it was a great real estate market. You would have a line like out the door of the fax machine, and you could email the fax. I still have memories in my mind of those days. So I was like, well, isn't there any sort of technology that can help manage the entire real estate process from when a lead comes in to transaction to close? And there was some systems. So we decided, me and my team and our savvy guys that I had, we decided to hire some developers and build our own product for our own team. What that turned into was a SaaS business, software as a service business by default. I had no idea what we were even doing. We started selling subscriptions to the local real estate guys. NRT ended up making an acquisition of that product years later. We raised capital. So I went through the understanding of identifying a problem to solving the problem to understanding how to raise capital, hire a team, hire developers, selling a business. And that gave me a tremendous amount of education on what that looks like. So fast forwarding, going into 2010, 2012, e-commerce became a big play. Amazon, everybody got very comfortable shopping online. And I have maybe it's a unique skill set to see around the corner of what's coming. I don't have a crystal ball or any means, but I have the ability to see what's coming in trends. And so I got into the e-commerce world and as actually high ticket items, we were selling furniture products online. So I built an e-commerce platform. I had a warehouse, a distribution network. I had a massive Amazon seller account. And I built that company up and I had a partner. My partner ended up buying my equity. And so that was a wonderful transaction that I did. The reason why I say that is because what I brought to the medical aesthetics world was combining those two background components into one umbrella, really focusing on marketing and focusing on process automation. My wife has been in the beauty industry for 20 years. Okay. So I had a bird's eye view of seeing how she operated. And she's a hairstylist, right? It's like works with extensions. Girls come in, they spend a lot of money. She's managing her whole business on books, paper. I mean, this goes back to like 2014. Books, paper, checks. I mean, I'm like, hey, have you ever heard of Venmo? I got her sign up for Venmo. And I'm like, hey, have you ever used Google Calendar? And now there's all sorts of cool products and apps out there now. But I said, this is interesting. I've actually solved the problem for real estate. I've solved the problem for e-commerce. How can we deploy this into a med spa environment? And my wife, similar type of arrangement, it's a service-based environment for primarily dominant for females. And so I had a buddy at the time that was called me and he said, hey, I'm thinking about buying a med spa. I'm like, I don't know what a med spa is. What's that? And this was in 2014. And he said, I'm sure your wife has Botox. I'm like, oh, I've heard of Botox. Yes, I've heard of that. Okay, cool. Like, what is it? Is it cool? What's the deal? I've never had it done. Apparently, she gets it done. I really know nothing about it. And he's like, well, you're savvy. I think this is a marketing play. Can you look under the hood for me before I make the acquisition? I said, yeah, sure. Let's look at it. And it had a pretty decent track record. However, the business wasn't profitable. And so he was able to make the acquisition at a substantial discount. And our philosophy was, let's turn the marketing engine on. Let's try to get patients. Let's leverage social media. Let's leverage the internet. Let's leverage Google reviews. Back then, reviews were still a thing. Now they're obviously everybody's very well understanding of how the importance of them. So we built a product and deployed it into his medical aesthetics practice. And that was really about it was feedback and retention. It was every time a client or patient left, we'd send them a text or an email asking them for feedback. And that would link to a Google review. Okay. That's how it all started. He started receiving reviews. His SEO went through the roof. His credibility went online. The practice started growing. And then I had the opportunity to go to the first American Med Spa conference. I attended that conference. I saw a desperate need from practice owners that were running a cash pay business that are desperate for patients, right? It's a patient marketing game. You have to be a marketer in this space. I'm a true believer the best marketers that own a medical aesthetics practice are the winners. They have to convert, they have to operate. So we decided, hey, why don't we create a full marketing automation engine and that encompass website, SEO, dig paid social, organic social, and then pushing that into a CRM system, which automatically updated the lead, followed up, and we sold it as a subscription based product. Well, we grew that from 15 to 24 to 2,000 rooftops, 2,000 practices, and probably the most well respected, well known name in the industry. So I'm the founder of a company called Growth 99. And so that's where I say I've worked with thousands of practices. I've had conversations after conversations after conversations. We learned some really cool things along that way. Like, I looked at the numbers, and if I was to look at all the practices, we actually helped generate over 50 million in revenue in booked patients for practices during that tenure. I actually think that that's a very conservative number. It's very hard to tie the attribution back to the EMR data, but that's what we found. And so I said, well, why didn't we contribute more? And it came down to being these practice owners need to become very good operators. You can have a CRM, you can have the tech stack, you can have the marketing engine, you can have the best brand, you can have great reviews, but there's always a leaky bucket. They either don't convert at the highest rate, they don't know how to run a formal comprehensive consultation, they don't know how to run a great treatment plan. There's not formal operators, and it's not because they're not educated, it's because their craft is patient care, right? They come from clinical. They don't come from business acumen mindset like I do. Just like if I was to come into a practice and want to be a clinician, I don't think I'd make it very far, right? That's not my background. That's not my area of expertise. For me, it's I can easily see that and identify it. For them, it's hard while they're seeing 20 patients a day. Like, how do they do that, right? So they're always working in the business versus on the business, makes it very challenging to run an effective practice. So if I was a practice owner today, and I want to scale, you can't convert your front desk person into your office manager. Like, you can. That's what I see happens. Sally's been here for 2 years. Let's make her the office manager. She wants a raise. I guess it can work if you're going to put some really strong educational factors behind her or him. But I think if you really want to scale, you have to bring on an operator, somebody that understands business numbers, conversion rates, utilization rates, attachment rates, revenue per hour. Like, it's a whole thing, and when you do that, you can see a massive surge in your practice, and this is why you see private equity coming in, because 'cause they're coming in and like, "Wow, I can just put my little business acumen on this thing, and I can take it, and I can tweak the numbers a little bit, and I can go trade this thing out for, a 5x return on capital in 2 years, while this founder took her 7 years to build it." And I'm a founder. I'm a creator. I'm a founder, and so I would rather see the provider make that upside versus the private equity groups, at least in the short term.
Right.
That's a
Do you
long-winded
Yeah.
answer.
No, that's really good. What kind of training would somebody want to look into? I wanna open a, med spa, or I, wanna run my own med spa. how do you even know what things that you should be looking for that growth? And if you don't have that training already, or you don't even, most people don't even know that's the kind of training that they need to grow outside of, advertising and actually being great at what they do.
That they don't know. The look, I have seen a nice trend in the last 12 to 18 months where practice owners are finally taking business acumen initiative and they're investing in consultants. They're investing in conferences that speak on how to run your practice like a business, right? If you go to a conference 3 years ago, a big conference, let's take AmSpa, let's take Aesthetic Next, there's like dabbles of business. It's like 90% clinical. You're seeing that narrative flip quite a bit. And now there's actually conferences that just focus on business acumen of here's how to train your front desk. Here's phone training skills. Here's how to run a consultation. Here's what success looks like. Here's your average ticket per patient spend. Where should you be? You're below the benchmark. Here's your revenue per hour per provider. Here's your utilization rates. Like all of the data is now starting to be exposed. And so like, I think the easiest way to break it down would be if I wanted to come in and get blood work, let's say I want to get on GLPs, peptides, whatever, I would assume a trusted, well respected provider is going to say, come in and get your blood work done. What's your baseline? And where do you want to be? Where should you be? What does success look like to you? Right. So that's what the provider should do is they should go get an analysis done, maybe a business evaluation. And you could talk to any consultant out there. I personally think Terry Ross Consulting is the best in the business. She has a phenomenal track record, very well educated, and has just testimony after testimonial. Anyway, I would talk to someone like her. They can give you a baseline, give you your benchmarks, and then give you suggestions on what you should do. And so that way, you at least understand where you are and where your gaps are, and how to solve those gaps, right? And so now there's great resources, but a few years ago there truly wasn't, and so it's great to see. But if I was a provider, um, and let's say I'm not seeing patients for the day. Like every provider has an admin day. It's like Monday or Wednesday. You know what they do on these admin days? Get their hair done, they go shopping, they chill. I get it. It's all good. It's fine. I love to golf too, so maybe on my admin days I golf. But they should take part of that time to work on the business. Look at the numbers, like your P&L. Like, do you have the right team? Now you're starting to see that, and you know you'll see some of these practice owners when they do it correctly. They bring in an operator or they focus on business acumen. Maybe they pull themselves out of being the lead provider,
Mm,
right? Because they need to work on the business versus seeing all the patients. You'll see them build so much enterprise value, and instead of selling their practice for at $1 million in EBITDA for a 6 to 7x return on capital, you could build it up to $3 million in EBITDA and go sell it for a 10 to 12x. And those numbers are very different. You're selling your practice on one end for 6 million on a 1x return on EBITDA on a million in EBITDA. Or if you take the 3 million in EBITDA and you want to sell it for 10, I mean, we're talking to $30 million. So it's a $24 million delta. It's all millions of dollars. But if I was to sell my baby, right? I'd rather sell it for as much money as I possibly could than take a discount and sell it to the business people at a discount and let them make all the money on the upside.
right. Yeah. So let's talk about that 1 million mark. Why is it such a common ceiling for practices?
Well, they always want, I got to get to 100 grand a month. I got to get to 100. It's almost like this mindset lock in shift, and 100 grand, times 12, that's 1.2 million. So I think it's for one, it's like this manifestation of 100K a month that kind of nets you a million. I honestly feel that way. It's like what you put out in the universe is real, right? I have great stories on that. Maybe it's the upper heavens or whatever, but I manifest goals, incomes, and it's very weird how it aligns with the numbers. Anyway, not to get too psycho crazy on the spiritual aspect of it, but it's a capacity issue. It truly is a capacity issue. If you do the math behind it, how many patients can I see in a day? How many hours are in a day? How many hours in a week? How many hours in a year? And if you do the math behind it, it typically tops out at about that range based upon just the capacity or the utilization of the practice. And they become See, the provider becomes handcuffed to the patient, the main provider, because they feel this need to be connected to the patient. They built the history, they built the relationship. They can't pass it to the other provider. They're afraid that their patient's going to leave and go somewhere else. When really it's a conversation of, hey, I brought in a new provider. She's amazing. She's trained by me. In fact, maybe sell it a little bit. She's actually better than me. I have her do my stuff. Look at me. Ooh, I'm amazing, right? So it's those things you have to learn how to delegate. You have to learn how to hire expertise. And another thing too is their take home cash tends to go up once they must start to make more money. Right? This is it's a material world that we live in, but I would say inside of aesthetics, it's actually because the power of social media. I actually think that if I was to go to, okay, let's just do an example, 1,000 teachers or 1,000 injectors, I would assume those injectors spend much more money than the teachers, right? It's the world that we're in. It's a vanity world, right? There's no right or wrong, but what I'm saying is once they start making good money, they start to spend that money and they start to show it online. What they could do is they could delay and have delayed gratification and hire an operator or hire a coach or hire a consultant and say, I'm okay with making less money for another 1 or 2 years, but I know year 3 or 4, I'm going to surge because I
Mhm.
have invested back into the business and I didn't take all the profits for myself. So that's another area that I think that, these business owners could work on.
Yeah. Investing back into the business, I think, is huge. Do you think that's something that a lot of people really miss out on? Really investing into your process and seeing how to make sure that you're able to grow and scale versus just being busy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, all of them are busy, but it's like, what's your max productivity per hour? What are you earning per hour? I hear all the time, oh, I made $1 million last year. Well, some of the times they're getting confused with top line revenue versus your EBITDA, your actual take home. And if you did $1 million in sales and you're taking home 250K, that's a healthy business. That's a 25% take home business. I'd buy, I'd invest in a business like that all day long. But I think they get like, I truly think the vanity role takes precedent. It does. I mean, I go to these conferences, I see what goes down. It's nice outfits, it's nice purses, it's nice shoes. And I'm all game for that. I like nice things too. Who doesn't? Right. But I also would help educate the practice owner that it's also smart to take chips off the table. And why not go buy a piece of real estate? Right?
Mhm,
Why not invest in the S&P 500 index? Why not invest in the Nasdaq? Why not invest in the Mag 7? And I'm just saying, like, other investment vehicles that pay you a return on capital where they actually, like, you can get your dollar to work for you without you working.
mhm,
It's very simple, actually. It's just people want instant gratification. Or why not lower your take home pay and go invest in a business operator that knows how much you should spend on marketing, what your lead conversion rate should be, what your rebooking rate should be, and analyze the business and pay them to operate the business while you inject and while you love to see patients,
mhm,
and therefore you have a great operator that is putting you in a position and understanding your goal. If your goal is in the next 3 years to double, triple sell, whatever it is, that operator is your backbone
right,
that helps run the company.
yeah. Do you think people are afraid of that in a way? You know, they don't want somebody to do better or to know more than they do, so they kinda get a little intimidated, and that's kind of what can hold people back?
I do. I think there's some of that. Yes, I think there's some ego there, or there's some sensitivity there for sure. Not all, but I think that some people tend to get in their own way. I know several business entrepreneurs that if they got out of their own way, their business would thrive. Right, and sometimes they become the bottleneck. They have to be in control. The bottleneck is their baby. And unfortunately, like, everything has to go through, Sally. Let's ask Sally, like, you know what I mean? That it's a bottleneck type of environment and it really does constrain them. Right. And I see others, look, I know a practice right now in Maple Grove, Minnesota, of all places. I work with them, and the founder, very intelligent, and she's She loves to hire expertise because I think in her mind, she's like, look, I'm a phenomenal provider. And like she owns that and she loves it. And she's like, I'm not a business owner though. I am. I own a business. This is holy cow, this thing's making money. She's a business owner. But she realizes that she has not invested 20,000 hours of business,
Mm,
where she has invested 20,000 hours of clinical expertise. So why would you not go buy that at a discount and buy the speed? That's what you're buying when you buy an operator. You're buying speed,
mhm,
right? That's why I would go to an injector to get, a treatment done. I'm buying expertise.
mhm.
I'm not going to go get this shit on Temu and do it myself, right? Like I'm going to go see a provider that knows what they're doing. So I hope that helps answer the question, but
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm sure you probably worked with some that are not ready to take that step. How do you deal with people that are really hesitant, that don't quite understand the value of making that leap and really bringing somebody on and kind of getting out of their own way? How do you have that conversation with people?
it's really hard. I think it depends on. I think you become look for me. Okay, let's just from my standpoint. I don't have time for it. It's just you either know or you don't know. It depends on where you're at in your journey, in your chapter. If you are a new consultant, I guess we would say, and I'm not saying I'm a consultant, but let's just say you want to be an operator for a practice or you want to consult a practice or advise or a business or whatever, you kind of have to look at your track record. It's like, are you qualified to to be a coach, to be an operator? Are you qualified for that role? What have you actually accomplished? I see a lot of I mean, if you go to TikTok or Instagram, there's coach guru after coach guru. It's like, everybody's a coach, It's like, well, what is your background? It's like you kind of want to hire expertise. That's what you're doing. But there is some other, coaches and consultants in the space that maybe they had worked at a practice for 5 or 6 years and they want to go out on their own and they have learned quite a bit and they would like to help a practice grow and they could be director of operations. I'm not sure. And maybe the practice has a hard time comprehending the investment there, or the owner has a hard time. I think it comes down to having a ROI calculation discussion, but it's really hard for an inadequate individual that doesn't have background expertise to pull out the gaps
Right.
and say, well, here's your gaps. Here's what happens when you solve the gap. Here's the time horizon. And here's the valuation impact. Right, and I think you have to go through a lot in order to have those types of conversations, and so, like, for me, I'm not out there trying to be an operator for practices, I own practices through private equity, I own some individual practices, I sit on Terry Ross Consulting's board, I advise her, I sit on a peptide and GLP-1 board, where we help practice owners through a portal tech-enabled platform, and so I'm busy, and practices come to me all the time, and they ask me, "Hey, can you give me some advice? Can I be on your podcast? Can we have a conversation? What does this look like?" I'm happy to have those discussions and point them in the right direction. But I think what happens is they start to look like, let's say you want to hire the best of the best. Okay, let's just say it's Terry Ross, for example, and I'm not trying to pitch Terry Ross. I just think she's got a phenomenal process and she's great. You're going to pay for it, right? And maybe it's 5,000 a month, 10,000 a month. Maybe it's whatever it is, but 5,000 a month to have the industry operator, their team come in and help you out and find those gaps. Some people in the aesthetics, they're like, "Whoa, that's a lot. I'm not gonna pay that per month. That's like my rent is 3,200." And so I think immediately it comes down to this fear of, "Wow, that's just too much money." That's just it's a common theme I hear, you know? They're not looking at the upside. They're looking at this as an expense on the P&L instead of an asset on the balance sheet. If they just looked at it through a complete different lens of, I'm going to take home 5,000 a month, but I know in the next 12 months, I'm going to be able to increase my EBITDA by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50%, my revenue by 100%. Like that's just delayed gratification. And imagine what they learn from that process, right? And what they can do with their practice afterwards. It's the same reason you hire a professional trainer. You know,
Right.
if you're like, January 1st, I got to get my shit in gear. I'm either going to go do it myself or I'm going to hire somebody to help me get there, hold my nutrition accountable, my macros accountable, get my blood work done. You pay for that stuff,
Mhm.
right? But they're like, dang, it's expensive to hire Brian, the barbell Brian. But maybe barbell Brian can get you in better shape than you can.
Right. Yeah, but it's also good to have another perspective coming in because sometimes we could be
Yeah.
blinded by saying, "Oh, you know what? We're doing great. We're growing. It seems like we're growing, but having somebody else to be able to come in and look at your business to say, "Hey, this is where you can improve some of these inefficiencies, and be able to make some more money by creating some efficiencies that actually work and the structure and process and workflows." I think it's huge.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's definitely a good point for someone to come in and look at it from a different standpoint. I had my own podcast, the Medical Millionaire podcast, and I was on a walk with my wife one morning, and I'm like, I have to go back to the house right now. It's Saturday. I never record episodes like solo episodes on Saturday. She's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Something just came to my mind. I have to go rip it right now, or I'm gonna forget." So, and it was all on this thought of emotion of because look, I have spent over 10,000 hours with practice owners. I've done the math and conversation after conversation. And I always hear, I feel like we're doing better. Like, how's the business going? I'll ask them. I feel like we're improving. And I'm like, I feel like our marketing is getting better. I feel like the front desk gal is finally getting it. I feel like we're getting busier. And I'm over here thinking, the hell are you talking about? What do you mean you feel like that? And so it just hit me that morning because I hear that a lot. I feel like we're getting better. I'm like, well, what does the data show? Like, is it up or down? What does the math show? Instead of this feeling, it's I don't know. I just had to double click on that because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you hear it too.
Yeah, it happens all the time for sure. So tell me a little bit more about your podcast. What all do you talk about?
Yeah. So right now, I'm taking the initiative to interview the top 100 injectors.
Okay.
There is a competition that takes place every single year. There's an award that goes out. I think it's peer-to-peer voting, and then you get awarded to be a top 100 injector. And so over the next 12 months, I'm trying to hit all of them. I've interviewed tech companies, private equity people, individual practice owners, just managers, vendors, key opinion leaders. I try to produce one episode a week, try to get one out every Wednesday. I've been doing it since 2019. The theme of the podcast is business acumen and mindset. How like tune in to learn something about marketing, about business, about finance. And why I want to start interviewing the injectors was I wanted the audience to hear their story,
Mm,
right? Why'd you start? How'd you start? What's your passion? What's your numbers? Where are you going? What's your thoughts? And it's really interesting, like the common themes you hear, the
mhm,
common success stories, how they got in, why they got in, what keeps them going. I find those conversations intriguing. And so like I'm an entrepreneur by heart and I love founder operators. I think they're like the coolest people ever because they woke up, they're like, I got this idea. And then
mhm.
they somehow have the courage to go do it. And it's hard. It's so hard. And they continue to do it. And so I just think those people are badasses.
Yeah, it's exciting to hear just being able to talk to other people that are creating and they're seeing a problem. That's what I love about entrepreneurs. They see a problem and they want to solve that. But the passion behind it, knowing that there's an issue and figuring out a way to fix that issue and to, just being innovative, I think is really awesome.
Yep. Yep. I
Yeah.
agree.
Tell me a little bit about marketing side. Let's talk a little bit about that. There's this default thinking that if you want to grow, you just need more leads. Why do you think that's not the real answer? And what happens when you pour more marketing into a business that doesn't have strong systems?
Yeah, it's a good question. Marketing is extremely important, but you have to measure it correctly. So the biggest challenge is for a practice owner to know if their marketing is working or not. Um, because there's so many channels. You have organic social, you have paid social, you have paid Google, you have organic SEO, you have your website, you have a CRM, you have an EMR. How much did you spend on ads? It's like clunky and archaic. By the way, I have to go see my patient in 5 minutes, so I don't have time to look at the data. Even with the systems, the CRMs and the EMRs, they're not communicating very great. The attributions tracking is very, very challenging. And so they actually have a really hard time understanding if their marketing is actually yielding a return. A really, really hard time. In fact, when we built Growth 99, I had people cancel that should never have canceled. They should never. I'm like, dude, you don't understand what you're paying. You're getting a 5 to 1 return on what you're paying. They would get so wrapped up in this image on my website for this service treatment isn't what I sent, and you guys uploaded the wrong one, which I get. Sure, mistake, sure, whatever. And I want to cancel. It's like, okay, you can go upload that yourself, which I don't think you know how to use WordPress, which again, we have our skill sets. But do you realize like you're paying X amount of dollars and getting a return? Those conversations, they're coming easier now, I think, with all the data coming out, but they have a hard time measuring the return. Okay. The ones that have like an awesome CMO or operator or like true director of marketing, not the social media gal, because I love the social media gal. You got to have her. This is a social media game. The content has to be legit, right? We all know that. But I always see that the social media gal does not have a grasp on the return on investment, the ROAS, the return on ad spend. So you have to have KPIs, you have to have trackers, you have to know what you're doing. And so a healthy organization should be spending anywhere from 7 to 12% of their revenue on marketing. Okay. I like 10. I think 10 is a sweet spot. So if you got a, $100,000 practice a month, you should be spending 10 grand a month on marketing. Most of them don't. Most of them dramatically underfund their marketing initiative and they're expecting a massive return, but no way to measure it. It's quite hard. It's a challenging conversation. The ones that have great operators, a CMO, a true director of marketing that understands how to measure attribution tracking, they can say, well, we spent $10,000 a month on marketing last month and we got $40,000 in bookings. That is a 4 to 1 return. This is phenomenal. Now, those people that came in, I'm assuming you did a great job. So they're going to come back, right? You got to keep those patients coming back, all about the patient frequency. And so how much does that patient spend over the course of 4 years if you keep them, right? So they need to look at it from an LTV standpoint, a lifetime value standpoint, and really have trackers on this stuff, right? So like I have a wonderful tracker that I use for ROAS calculations. I have all the ad spend that comes in from Meta, comes in from Google. I know exactly what the conversion rates are, what the ROI of capital is. I've just taken the time to do it, but what happens is they start to spend money on marketing. And then guess what? A lead will even raise their hand. Hey, I'm interested. They won't call them. Or when the phone rings, they answer, and the person on the other side of the phone is, hey, how much do you charge per unit for Botox? And she's like, hey, what do we charge again? Oh yeah, it's $12 a unit. Okay, it's okay, sorry, too expensive. They're not trained on the phone, right? The response should be, well, what are you looking for in an aesthetics provider? Have
Mhm.
you been to a medical aesthetics practice before? Do you have an event coming up? Like this, the qualification of the lead that comes in to get to the root issue of why they called, and your bookings will go up. So one, it's tracking the spend, it's being better on the phone, some sales training there, funding your marketing initiatives correctly, and that way you can measure it. So
Yeah. That makes more sense. I mean, you're pulling different aspects of that marketing versus just looking at, "Oh, okay, we've got so many likes on this post, and hopefully these people decide to check it out." But, you do see a lot of that. I think even my Instagram page, I've got, all these different ones that I've saved, like, "Ooh, I need to go check out that coffee shop," or got my whole list of places that I need to go to. I have not actually been to half of them, so it makes a lot of sense when you're capturing those leads and actually following through, but especially when you call in, and you can definitely lose people there, but I don't think a lot of people think like that. They don't think whoever is answering the phone is going to either get us a sale or potentially lose a new client.
They don't. They put the front. They put the. They spend the money on marketing. The phone calls come in, and the poor gal answering the phone has had zero phone experience training.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is your closer? Like that's a problem. Look, I've come to the realization that the front staff, the front desk, that role is just as valuable as a provider.
Mhm.
Now, I mean, have the argument, like if the provider's like, well, wait a minute, I went to school, I'm a provider, I'm an injector, like I get it. I get it. But do you know that that gal just made you a bunch of money on your commissions because she converted all those patients for you? So
Mhm.
that staff is the most under recognized performer in the business to this day. They're not they're not compensated correctly. They're not trained correctly. There's zero to no performance based compensation. It's like, we'll pay you $10 an hour, answer the phones. Like,
Mhm.
wait, you're going to spend $10,000 a month on marketing. All the leads are going to go to her, and you're going to expect her to close them all with no training and no performance based comp. So, like, here's one thing I would do if I was a practice owner. If you have that problem, all your leads are going to your front desk, which I know they are because they answer the phones, inject performance based compensation.
Mhm.
If you're above 70% book rate, give them a cookie, right? And what I mean by that's dollars. And what about rebooking? What about membership sales? I'll give you a story. Again, I help operate a practice, up north. We're going to get her in a position to sell enterprise value of this practice. Our thesis on it, and by the 2029 2030 should trade out for about 45 million. And we have a plan. We know our numbers. We have a plan. We're executing. Simple. It's not simple. It's hard, but we at least have a plan. At first, we realized we had a front desk problem, and it can always get better too. I don't think you ever solved anything. You just like fine tune stuff. But we're like, hey, why are we only selling 4 memberships a month? We have 120 members. What is it like? Why are we not pitching? It's a wonderful membership.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, all right, well, let me look at staff's performance based comp. Oh, there is none. Okay, look, let's inject that. So we injected a tracker. You get paid if you help collect review. You get paid on retail sales. You get paid on membership sales. You get paid on converting new bookings. You get paid on rebookings. So now they know what their job description is.
Mhm.
They love to participate in the bonus structure. Love it. It makes them feel part of the team, part of the engine. Or I was just looking the April membership sales for just April is 26 units. And whether that's a lot or little, I think it's all relative depending on your practice size. We were selling 4, right? And all we did was just like, well, why don't you just give her a nugget for every membership? And she like leached onto it, and it's like her thing, and she loves it, and she's got her pitch down, um, and she gets rewarded for it, right? So, and let me put some math behind that. Okay, I want to put some math behind that. So let's just say you are doing, I think these memberships that she sells 149. Let's just do 150. 150 times 4, because she was selling 4. That's $600 a month in recurring revenue. Times that by 12, that's 7,200 a year. Big whoop. Well, if you're at 25 times 150, you're at 25 times 150, that's 3,700 a month. Times that by 12, that's 45,000, right? So minus the 7,200, we just increased our annual recurring revenue on 1 month by $37,800. That's just 1 month. Now compound that by, it's a $500,000 lift. Stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? It's just stuff like that. It's just so
Yeah,
I think,
front I worked at the front office when I started in dermatology, and the front office, I've always felt like is the face of the company. It's the first person that the client sees when they walk through the door, and it's the last person that they see. So, how that person at the front desk interacts is gonna determine whether or not that client is coming back or not.
you're right. You have to have a wonderful attitude. You have to be on. I mean, they're coming to your practice for an experience,
Mhm.
taking the time out of their day to come to you, and they're pumped too. They're excited, right? So yeah, you have to be a wonderful greeter and have a great attitude and know what your job description is and be rewarded for it.
Right.
I think at front desk, if done well, they should make well over 100 grand.
Man, I wish there was, like, some kind of conference or something. Maybe that's a new idea. Some kinda training conferences for front office.
Well, the 4S is a good one.
Yeah.
4S Summit. They do it 3 times a year. It's pretty good.
Okay. So, all right, what is the hard truth about this industry that people don't wanna hear?
That's a good question. From the what lens are we talking about? The provider, the patient, the world?
No, let's say from your lens, not
Hmm.
just in the industry in general and running a practice.
It's hard. It's damn hard. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of emotion. You have the ability to make great money as a provider. You also have to keep your culture super tight. You know, most practices that at least I know are female dominant. I don't know a group of dudes that has a med spa. I'm sure they're out there. Right, I know that, like, there's, like, the male clinics and stuff, but, you know, if I was to look at the base, I mean, in fact, Q Sites did a survey based upon females versus males. I mean, it's night and day, but the male population's growing. Shoot, I'm a patient, right? But I go to a female provider. The females can be mean, right? They can, like, you guys I mean, I have 2 daughters, so, I mean, I guess I see the fights, the wife, the daughters, the girls, the friends, like, you guys can be mean and, like so culture's hard for one. There's sensitivity, there's emotion that has to be tabled at a high capacity, and then running a profitable business, understanding inventory control, understanding how to occupy or lease a property correctly, acquire a property correctly. Not going to location two when location one is actually half vacant. Knowing your numbers is extremely important. Hiring expertise, delivering a patient experience and patient outcome, picking the right software to use, picking the right way to chart from a provider standpoint. It's from the outside in, from a vanity standpoint, from a social media standpoint, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go open up my own practice, or I'm going to become an injector. They're all making so much money. Look how beautiful they are.
Mhm.
Yes, some of that's true. They have access to treatments and they get a pretty dang good, cost of goods. Like it's their own stuff. They're buying direct from manufacturer and wholesale, and they have access to their own lasers. Sure. But it's expensive and things can go south quickly, very, very quickly, right? You have to deliver safety, deliver an outcome, be compliant. So that's a whole other avenue.
Mhm.
Know how to pay your people correctly, run a great culture, team events, know how to make a profit, know how to file taxes, know what a P&L looks like. It's much, much harder than what the surface shows. The surface shows beauty, vanity, and money.
Mhm.
And that's a byproduct of a successful practice for sure, but not all are that way. Some of the, there's definitely some blood, sweat, and tears. And I think if you're going to become a practice owner, you also need to understand what it takes to be an entrepreneur because it's a hard game. It's lonely at the top, and you don't really have anybody to lean on. There's lonely nights, there's lonely days. You're in your head constantly. It never stops. And there's some providers out there, injectors that make 2, 3, 400 grand a year, and they show up, they inject, they go home. They have a pretty damn good lifestyle. And some of these gals want to go out on their own, start their own practice. Sure, if you have the entrepreneurial drive, maybe it makes sense, but some just don't. And that's okay. It's great to make that type of income and shut it off because an entrepreneur, it doesn't shut off.
Right.
And then in order to make money, you sell time. So, like, go on vacation.
Mhm.
You have to pay for the vacation. And you probably have kids, then you got to hire care. And then, by the way, you're not able to sell those hours. So, like, vacation costs you 3 times as much money, right? So it's I think on the surface, I guess on the surface it looks beautiful and it is, but it has to be ran the right way or else there's severe consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation and bringing so much light to the aesthetics world and building businesses. If anybody is interested in learning more or where they can connect, do you have any like website you can share or information?
Yeah, the best way to find me is just go to CameronHempill.com. Everything's on there. The products, the teams I represent, my podcast is on there, social, all that stuff. So that's the warehouse where I put everything.
Thank you so much, Cameron. It's been such a pleasure having you on and chatting with you.
Likewise, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending a few minutes with me and listening to That's Derm Good. You can expect new episodes of That's Derm Good every week. The podcast is available on your favorite app, including where you're listening right now. Subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a new episode. Bye.